Welcome to the Austin, Texas Living Channel. I'm Tiffany Moore. I'm a local realtor and broker right here in Austin, Texas. Are you looking for a home to buy in Austin, Texas? Are you thinking about making this move? Well, make sure you don't make these mistakes when you are buying a home in Austin. Hey, my name is Tiffany Moore. I mentioned I'm a local realtor and broker right here in Austin, Texas. I help people from all over the world move here. If that's something that you're thinking about doing, my contact info is on the screen right here. Make sure you jot it down. Give me a call, shoot me a text or an email, whatever you're more comfortable with. I've got your back when you're moving to Austin. So if this is something that you're thinking about doing, you definitely want to watch this video because I'm going to talk about the common mistakes that people make when they move to Austin. Make sure that you don't do any of these things, and then the whole process will go a little bit more smoothly for you. The first mistake that people make is not doing their research and doing their planning for a new city that they're moving to. So it's always a good idea to do your research ahead of time about the cost of living and the cost of housing for any city that you're going to be moving to. So if you're moving to Austin from somewhere like the Bay Area or Seattle or New York City, you're going to look at the home prices here and be like, oh my gosh, this is like taking candy from a baby. This is insane. But if you're moving to Austin from like Covington, Kentucky, or St. Louis, Missouri, or even Dallas, your perspective is going to change a little bit. So it's not like taking candy from a baby. Instead, you're going to say like, oh my gosh, why is housing so expensive here? What's going on? So budgeting appropriately is really important when you're thinking about moving to a new town, especially Austin. You may be hearing that Austin is so affordable, and it is, relatively speaking, if you're coming from those high-priced areas. But if you're not coming from those areas, just make sure that you understand what the housing prices actually are and what your total costs are going to be when you're buying a home here. One of the biggest factors you need to take into account when you are thinking about moving to Austin or anywhere in Texas is our property taxes. So if you've seen any of my other videos, you've probably seen me talk about property taxes because it's a really big deal and it takes a lot of people by surprise. So Texas has high property taxes, but we don't have state income tax. So that is the trade-off. And in Austin, your property tax rate can range anywhere from like 1.4% to 3.2%, depending on the neighborhood that you're living in. So you really need to add property taxes into the monthly payment that you're planning for when you're buying a home. Unless you plan on paying your taxes separately, which not a lot of people do, it's usually going to be rolled into your mortgage. So your mortgage company is going to divvy out your property taxes and just add it onto your monthly payment. So with your monthly payment, you're going to have your principal and your interest. You're going to have your homeowner's insurance unless you pay that up front. And the other really big chunk that you're going to have is property taxes. So if we're just doing some quick back of the napkin math, let's say you have a home that's at the assessed value, meaning like the tax assessed value is $600,000 and your tax rate is 2.5%. That's $15,000 in a year that you owe for taxes. That's about $1,250 a month. Like, this is no joke. This is a serious expense that you need to consider and be aware of when you're trying to budget and plan for the kind of home you can afford when you're moving to Austin. And again, this is going to be on top of your principal and your interest. So you're paying your mortgage, paying your interest, then you're paying $1,250 on top of it for your property taxes. What I tell my clients is to figure out the monthly payment that they're comfortable with when it comes to their mortgage payment, meaning their principal, their interest, and their property taxes. But once we figure out that range, we work backwards from there to determine what purchasing price range we should be looking at. The second mistake people make when they move to Austin is underestimating the traffic. So as one of the fastest growing cities in America, Austin is no stranger to gridlock traffic, bumper to bumper, sitting there and just waiting for who knows what before you can move forward. So it's really important to be sure to check out the traffic patterns, whether you use Google Maps, Waze, whatever it is. Even if you know the route, there's so many different routes that you can take depending on what traffic is doing. So if you normally take 183, but you notice there's a big accident there, you're going to need to go around and just take a different route. So I understand that traffic in California and Atlanta and New York City is bad. Austin traffic isn't that bad. I had an opportunity to experience this firsthand when my husband and I lived in El Paso. We took a road trip out to LA to go see a show and to see some cool stuff. And we stopped in Phoenix and we got up the next morning and went to go finish our trip. And we landed in LA exactly at 5 p.m. And it was Horrible. I'm pretty sure it took us like an hour and a half to drive 4 miles on the highway. Austin traffic isn't that bad yet. It's not that bad yet, but it is not fun. So if you're going to be working downtown and you have to be in the office at regular work time, 8:30, 9 o'clock, you're going to want to give yourself some extra time to leave the house because of traffic and because of accidents and all that stuff. And this is something that you need to take into account when you're trying to narrow down what neighborhoods you want to live in Austin. So if you do know that you're going to be working downtown 4 to 5 days a week and you have to be there at 9 a.m., and you're moving to Austin because you hate commuting 90 minutes one way, like we're not going to do that again. It doesn't make sense to move cities and then just live the same life you were living before. We're not going to do that 90-minute commute. At the most, you might have a 45-minute commute if you're living out in like Cedar Park, Round Rock, maybe Georgetown. Anything further than that, where we're getting into like Leander, Liberty Hill, it's going to be closer to an hour. So really just think about, are you going to have to commute into work, and how much of a commute are you comfortable with? And that will really inform the areas around Austin that we need to be looking at when we are, looking at homes to buy. And this is something that we'll talk about in our call too. I really want to talk about the lifestyle that you want to live, where you're going to work, how often you're going to have to go in, and how much of a drive you are comfortable with. And then we kind of determine from there, okay, here's some of the options that we have based on a lot of other things that you are looking for. Also, unlike cities like New York, Seattle, Boston, we do not have a very robust public transportation system. So don't plan on just like hopping on the train or taking the bus to go into town. You're going to have to drive. So right now our commuter rail, it's actually what it is. It's really just a commuter rail, and it's really just within the city. So it does go out to the Domain. They're building a stop out to our soccer stadium. They have a stop in Leander, and they're building another stop at some of the new construction going on in Leander. If you've heard me talk about North Line, that is the furthest stop that they're building for the train. But right now, what we have is really just a commuter train that, seriously, the last train leaves at like 7 p.m. In the afternoon, and then it doesn't really run on the weekends. It starts at like noon on Saturday and doesn't run at all on Sunday. So forget about taking it downtown to have brunch or to go see a show. It's really just for commuters. So if you end up having a happy hour one day and it gets over at like 7:30, like, sorry, you missed your train home. So it's not really something that you can rely on unless, you're strictly going 9 to 5 and you live in the city and you're going to somewhere else in the city. So the third mistake people make is not knowing or not having any idea where they want to live. So knowing where to live in Austin can be tricky. There are so many different neighborhoods, and they all have their own charm, their own personality. They all have pros and cons about them. And you really have to make sure that where you're living, it fits the lifestyle that you want to live and your personality, and really the reasons that you're moving to Austin. If you're moving to Austin to be closer to nature, to parks, to trails and things like that, it makes sense to live somewhere that's close to those things. It doesn't make sense to live somewhere where it's like we have no parks, we have no trails, all we have are like houses that have driveways, and you get onto the highway. So it's really important to, number one, consider what you want, because if you don't know what you want, it can't really help you get there. So think about what lifestyle you want to live. Think about the reasons why you're moving to Austin. You have an opportunity to kind of start fresh. Whereas where you're at now, you may have been limited by price range or commute or where you grew up or where your roommates live. But if you're moving to Austin, like, you have an opportunity to start fresh. And it's really important to start thinking about, okay, what kind of lifestyle do I want to live? What's going to suit my personality? What are my interests now? What do I want to be close to? And then we kind of build this home search around that. So you want to do your research so you kind of have a general idea of the areas around Austin that are going to suit the lifestyle that you want to live. If you're moving to Austin to live the classic like Austin lifestyle, and you want to go see live music a lot, you want to check out the shows and the bars and the restaurants and all these things, and you really want to live Austin, you have to live in Austin to do that. So you have to live in the city. It's going to be really hard for you to experience those things if you're living in the suburbs in Leander, or if you're living in Lakeway, or if you're living down south in Bastrop. You're not going to want to come to the city very often. And when you're there, you're not going to want to stay very late because you have a 30-40 minute drive home. So if you want to live that lifestyle, you want to be in the mix in Austin, you have to live in Austin to do that. If you've been planning on buying a boat and being out on the water and doing water skiing, or just like hanging out on the water with some peace and quiet and being around nature, you want to live around Lakeway and Bee Cave if that's something that you want to do. The river does run through the city. So the Colorado River runs through the city, and we dam it off in different places, and we call those things lakes in between the dams. But there's not, what we've got in the city is more for like stand-up paddle, canoeing, kayaking, things like that. If you want to take like your jet ski and your motorboat and those things, your pontoon boat out, you're going to want to live somewhere that's going to give you easy access to that. And that's going to be the Lakeway Bee Cave area. If you want to live in communities where your kids can play with other kids at the pool and on the playground and go to the parks together, and they can have play dates that are 2 minutes away and their school is 5 minutes away, you definitely want to check out one of those master planned communities and some of the new construction that's going on. Whether it's there with the new construction or it's in some of the existing neighborhoods that we've got here, that's definitely going to be something to consider. You're not going to find a lot of those activities or opportunities if you're, for instance, like living in one of the high-rise condos downtown. You know, if you're living at the Four Seasons, like that's not going to be a place where your kids are going to get to meet and hang out with other kids a whole lot. So just thinking about the lifestyle that you and your family want to live is really going to inform the areas that we prioritize. Austin is big, and it's got a lot of different pockets that have their own character and their own personalities. And it's really important to find the right place for you so that you can live the life that you want. And you probably don't know about those little communities, those little pockets. Don't worry, that's something that we'll talk about on our call. I'm going to find out what is important to you. Why are you moving to Austin? What kind of life do you want to live? And then we can kind of go from there and figure out, okay, these are going to be the best spots to help you enjoy your life and live your life here. The fourth mistake people make is waiting too long to get started. And really, especially, I'm talking about if you're looking for new construction. Let me just say this, buying a home doesn't have to take months. It really doesn't. Some people can drag it out, but it doesn't have to be the norm. What usually takes the longest is when we're looking at new construction, and then we're kind of at the mercy of the builder's timelines. So for most of my clients, we're able to find the home that works for them in about 2 to 3 weeks from when we start looking. And the reason that we're able to be so efficient with that is because we do a lot of legwork on the back end. So we get crystal clear on narrowing down, why are you even moving here? Like, why are you moving to Austin? What kind of lifestyle do you want to live? What's important for you to be around? And as we're looking at pictures, then we're narrowing down, oh, I love this kitchen. I hate that backyard. I love this patio. I really love this, bedroom setup and bathroom and guest room and all those things. So through looking at the pictures, we're really able to narrow down what we want. And then when it's time to start looking in person, we're only going to see the home so you can already kind of see yourself living in. So does it make sense to see homes that you look at pictures and you're just like, oh no, absolutely not. We're not going to do that. It doesn't serve anyone. So the resale process from when we start looking to when we close takes about 60 days. And that's even with some wiggle room. Because once we sign a contract and we get a home under contract, we're going to close within 30 days of that. And it's only going to take us like 2 or 3 weeks to find a home. So we've got 1 to 2 weeks of wiggle room where if it takes a little bit longer, you're totally still on track. But if you're considering new construction, this is when we need to start the process a little bit earlier. And there's a few options that we have with new construction, but at the end of the day, we're kind of at the mercy of the builder and their timeline. So I mentioned we have a couple options. One is if we're buying a spec home, and this is where all the options have already been decided by the builder, and we are buying the home as is. So the builder's already decided, okay, for this floor plan, I'm going to add a bedroom. I'm going to add an extended patio. I'm going to change the dining room to a study. And they've already decided on the flooring, the cabinets, the countertops, all of those things. And they're basically selling the home as they've designed it, and we buy it like that. The other option is if we're building a home from scratch, from the ground up. So the first option where we're buying the home as is, the builders picked out all of the structural designs and the cosmetic designs and things like that. Those houses usually go on sale anywhere from 3 to 6 months before it's time to close. So if the house is going to be done in September, it's probably going to go on sale anywhere from like March to June. And what's happening in Austin is the market has really started picking up in the past couple months. And I have been at so many different builders models in all kinds of different neighborhoods at all price ranges with all builders in the Austin area in the past like 6 to 8 weeks. And what I'm hearing from every single one is the market is picking up. We're selling homes faster than we did in like the second half of last year. Because basically last year, from June till December, it was pretty dead. People were freaking out about interest rates. There was a pending recession coming. And now we're kind of settling into this new normal with interest rates. And we're not seeing the doom and gloom of the recession that we thought we would. So builders are telling me that it's picking up. I can see with my own eyes when I'm there. I'm making an appointment with a builder, and as I'm sitting there talking to them, there's 4 other groups coming in touring this model. So I can see that it's busier. We can see that the homes aren't sitting for sale as long as they used to be. So we still have a little bit of urgency with new construction. Now that busyness hasn't trickled down yet to resale, and there's a lot of different reasons for that. But the new construction process, we need to kind of be aware of it, because let's say a home does go on sale 3 to 6 months before it's completed. We don't have 3 to 6 months to decide if we want to buy it. There's still other people coming in to check out that house too. So if it's something that we think we're interested in, we kind of still need to make a decision fairly quickly, not as quickly as we did before, not like same day, but in the next couple days, in the next week or so, we're going to need to make a decision. Now, if you want to build your house from the ground up and pick out the covered patio that you want and add the bedroom and switch the dining room into a study or whatever it is that you want to do, and you want to pick out all the cabinets, the countertops, the flooring, that's going to take about a 12-month process from when you sign the contract to when the house is completed. Every builder in every neighborhood is different, but 12 months is kind of the average. Some are taking 9. Some are taking maybe 13 to 14 months. 12 months is a conservative estimate for you to plan on. So if that's something that you're interested in and you're like, oh, cool, it's February, I want to move to Austin in October, I want to build a house from the ground up, there's probably not time for that. There's probably not enough time for that. So plan on it taking a year from when you sign the paperwork to when you get to move into your home if you're going to build it from the ground up. These are some of the decisions and the conversations that we'll have when we talk on our call about you thinking about moving to Austin. Number 5, the 5th big mistake people make when they are moving to Austin is waiting for the market to crash. So for a couple years, I have been hearing people tell me that a crash is coming and the market's going to crash. I don't want to buy now because I think it's going to crash. I'm going to swoop in and I'm going to buy this stuff then. I know we've all been hearing that a recession is coming and the market is about to crash. And some industries have definitely felt the squeeze. I know that. I know that some industries are struggling right now. And the real estate market was kind of at a standstill for about 6 months. So from June of 2022 to about December, it was crickets. There were some people buying homes in Austin, but for the most part, people were worried about the high interest rates because they did get pretty high. They peaked at around like 7.3%. And worried about an impending recession. And so everyone was kind of freaking out and on pause at that point. Well, guess what happened then? Like prices dropped, right? Prices dropped because we didn't have as many buyers in the market. But it didn't see everyone swooping in to buy all this property where the prices had dropped. That didn't happen. And now what's happened since pretty much the second week of January 2023 is there's a lot more activity going on in Austin. We talked about there being more activity with new construction. That's kind of where it's starting because new construction is offering reduced interest rates. They're offering a lot of buyer incentives to get buyers in the door to buy their homes. And individual sellers in the resale market, they're just not offering those things right now. They could, like there could be some things they could offer to kind of get buyers in the door to buy their house, but it's a personal decision versus a business decision. And the builders, like they have a lot more homes to sell. If they sell like 30 homes at a loss, it's going to be a bigger hit than, one couple taking a loss on their home. So just that to say that when the market was down, people weren't swooping in to buy houses here. So what's been happening recently is interest rates have been coming down. They're probably going to be steady for the next couple months or so. But people are starting to realize that this is the new normal, that the interest rates we had before, 2.5 and 3%, it was an anomaly. That was crazy. And the reason for that was to stimulate the economy. It's stimulated, like it's been stimulated. And so the rates that we've got now where they're like 6.3%, 6.5, you can buy down your rates. I'm seeing rates at like 5.2% right now. This is kind of more normal. And people are starting to realize like, okay, this is what it is now. I've already put my life on hold for the past 6 to 7 months. I thought I was going to buy a house. I needed to wait. I'm not waiting anymore. People are done waiting. And so we're seeing a lot more activity with new construction. We are seeing a little bit more activity with resale homes. And by that, I mean like the good homes are selling. The good homes that are appropriately priced, they're selling. They're not sitting on the market for 45, 60 days. So one thing to keep in mind when we talk about a crash is coming and I'm going to buy the house when the crash comes, one, you're probably not, because you're probably going to be scared that it's going to dip further. And it's like, oh, who would buy a house now? Everyone says that's what they're going to do, but no one does it. So one thing to keep in mind is that real estate is hyper local. It's hyper local. And so what may be happening in, Covington, Kentucky is not what's happening in Austin, Texas. And also I want you to think about like, okay, let's say you buy real estate today and then there is a crash in 6 months and it lasts for about a year. Unless you planned on selling your home during that year where the market crashed, it doesn't really affect you. It's kind of like the stock market. It's like I have this asset, oh my gosh, and then the market crashed and then it went back up and now it's appreciated again. And I'm just not going to sell it while the value is low, right? It's the same idea. So if you are not sure if you're going to be here long term, yeah, I would say don't buy right now. But if you think you're going to be here for 3 to 5 years, 5 to 7 years, it doesn't matter what the market does while you live there because you weren't planning on selling it. The only time that affects you is when you're actually going to sell it. So like I said, like if this is a short-term thing for you, yeah, definitely be hyper aware of what's going on with the market in the next 6 months or so. But if you're not, if this is a long-term investment, does it matter? Does it matter if the market went down? Are you really going to time it and wait for it to crash? And then all of a sudden you're going to be super confident that like, okay, this is the bottom. I'm going to hit the market when it's at the rock bottom. That just doesn't happen. Most people don't do that. So if this is something that you want to do it. If you want to buy a home, buy a home. If you want to wait for interest rates to come down a little bit, yeah, that's understandable. But you can also buy down your interest rate. We can negotiate that with the seller. But just please don't wait for the market to crash before you buy a home in Austin. I've been talking to people about this since I became a real estate agent. Everyone's waiting for the market to crash for them to buy a home. In the meantime, it just keeps going up. It keeps going up in the long term. So get over it, move on, live your life, do what you want to do. And forget about the market crashing or timing things. Or what if the market goes down while I own it? Like, I've owned my home for 10 years. The market has gone up and down many times since I bought it. But I'm not planning on selling anytime soon. So it doesn't really affect me. I hope this has given you some insight on some of the mistakes that I see people making and some of the pitfalls that happen when they're moving to Austin. So if you are thinking about moving here, my contact info is on the screen. Call me, text me, however you want to reach out to me. I've got your back when you're moving to Austin, and we're going to help you figure out all these things and make sure you don't make the same mistakes.